In this video series, we're going to talk about portraiture. By definition, a portrait is a photo of a person or an animal meant to show that individual. Portraiture can include families or groups, so it's not always just limited to one individual, but most often it is. For me, portraiture was limited to animals initially. I really didn't shoot photos of people. But I will tell you, a lot of photographers I know got their practice and their start as photographers, professional photographers, building their businesses and bringing in income so they could, build further and then start to really do what they loved by doing portraits. Every year school children have their pictures taken for yearbooks and for their parents to purchase photos to send to relatives. There's money in that. There are studios out there that take portraits. A lot of things you can do. But for me, my original focus, my main focus, my practice with portraiture was on the animals that I was living with, in this case specifically cats. And this is Calliope, and she was intently looking out the window. And I didn't have long to take the photo because it's very difficult to shoot someone who is moving. So I used, I made sure I was focused on her eye. Whenever you take a portrait, the eyes are the most important. As long as that eye is in focus, everything else can be out of focus and it still is a good shot. The eyes are out of focus, it's not a good shot. Okay, so it really is about the eyes. And as you can see in this photo, I focused right there on her eye. Her nose is out of focus. You can see because her eye was in the same plane. Her whiskers were in the same plane as her eye. You see a little bit of her whiskers, but everything else that's not in that plane is out of focus. But it's okay because the eyes are in focus. And there's enough here that's not in focus that you recognize the cat. And one of the things that's works really well, why this is an excellent photo, I could actually sell this one, is because you see her eyes. Her eyes are naturally kind of greenish yellow, more towards yellow. But the outside, this was all plants, and it blurred because it was so far in the background, it was out of focus. The color here is being reflected in her eye, so we have unity. Her ear right here and some of the highlights on her fur, even though she's really, really dark gray, the highlights were kind of reddish and pinkish, and as you guys have taken DMPT 1000, know red and green are complementary. And then I've got a lot of negative space that she's looking into. Whenever you take a side portrait like this, you want to make sure that you're leaving enough room over here. Negative space, right? Positive space is the cat. Negative space is the blurred background. You want to make sure that you're leaving enough negative space here so that your subjects can see forward. Especially if the animal is moving or the person's moving forward, you want to give them room in your photograph to move into. So balance in portraiture that's not still photography. And I know she's holding still, but she's looking forward. So there's that forward action, that forward movement is really important. So you want there to be context, you want there to be space. Now, most everyone who's ever known a cat will know she was probably looking at a bird or a squirrel or a chipmunk out the window. And you can't really see because this is out of focus, but her mouth is slightly open and cats will chitter. In fact, she's the cat that in other videos that you've heard talking, that's her. Calliope in Greek means beautiful singer, and she actually caterwauls all the time, and so it was kind of a joke to name her Calliope. Okay, so that's mostly what I have shot outside of landscapes and architecture, and I've got lots of photos to show you for my work in these different areas, but this is probably the one where I have the least amount of work to show you. That's mine. The cat, let's see, other animals, let's see, where's the, here we go. Flamingo, again, the eyes are perfectly in focus, doesn't matter what else is. Now, for this, I wanted to make sure more of the animal was in focus so you could see, because these are just gorgeous birds. And they were on there was a pond with flamingos in it on a bird sanctuary, actually a wildlife sanctuary in Florida. And I was there in December several years ago on a camping trip, and I went by and I start taking photographs of the birds because they're beautiful. They're this just gorgeous shade of flamingo pink, and I probably took 200 photos of the birds, and this is the best one. It's really hard to capture a moving subject, but always want the eye in focus. That makes the picture. Makes or breaks the picture, actually. Okay, so let's see. Next, I'm just going to go to this folder with these images in it. I was going to go to the beginning here. Let me get this to fit. This was the Okmulgee Indian Festival in Macon, and I went with my husband, who's part Cherokee, because we wanted to, I'm trying to get this to fit here, because we wanted to see the dances and the costumes, and it's part of his heritage. And so these are some photos that I took of people. Now, while they're not formal portraits, they do sort of count towards portraiture because they are showing people's faces. They're showing people in their native costume. It's meant to be educational and informative. The reason I took this one, and I absolutely love this one, was there's this girl in this native costume who's drinking a Coke. It's just that combination of how her past and her present are brought in together in this image. And then they were dancing in their costumes and captured this one of this woman, and this is she's moving, but it's still a portrait. It's still a picture of her. It's very clearly her. It's meant to be her. And then I just took it through some different iterations of photo editing. I just wanted to play around with it a little bit to see what else I could do with the image, see if I could get a better. And I really, really like this one best. Even though the colors are beautiful in the other one, what I like best about this is it gets rid of the background, because it was really hard to take photographs. I could have cropped it, but then I would have lost detail on her. It was really hard to take photographs there that didn't get the crowd in them. And so this one sort of just makes this blend in the background. You don't notice it as much as you do in the color photos. I mean, I kind of tried to get it out, but there it's very obvious. And then just more portraits that, you know, it's a color image, black and white image. I really liked the black and white. But there's so much beautiful color too, so just kind of some different variations. I think this one's probably my favorite because it just kind of keeps it simple and clean. Now here he is completely black and white, and you see a lot of texture, but I selectively added back in, or actually I just removed the stuff that wasn't his costume. So everything but his costume is in color and everything else is in black and white, and I like this one the best. I think that turned out really nice. But to capture him, right, to get his face in my image, he was moving. This was difficult. This was a really huge challenge to try to capture him in a portrait way while he was moving. And so you have to take a lot of shots. And part of what you're doing when you're shooting people that are moving or animals that are moving is you're sort of ahead of them. Because with digital photography, all digital equipment has that slight delay. There isn't on manual SLRs and cameras that are mechanical. Don't have the delay. You immediately press the button and the shutter immediately reacts. With digital, there's a delay. And so what you're wanting to do when you're shooting someone is kind of follow them as they're moving, but slightly be ahead of them. Because when you hit that button, they're going to have moved forward into, you know, the next frame in time. There we go. I put him completely in color there. So here he's black and white. Here just his costume's black and white. I mean just his costume's color. And here just he's in color and everything else is out. And actually I like this one the best because it separates him, sort of his past and present that are combined, and just played with it a little bit more. Just different iterations. I've shown you guys this one. That was the original photo. And this ended up being the one, I think. Is that the final one? Yeah, I think this was the one I like the best. Because it looks colorized. And if you take a photo and you make it black and white, and then you go into Photoshop with it and create a new layer and paint on that layer, and apply it as you blend it as an opacity blending mode, you can create this cool effect that makes it look like an old photograph that was hand colored. And that's what I did here, and that's why his face looks like it was hand colored, is because I took the color took the color out and then I put the color back in. And so you can see the black and white underneath with the color on top of it. Hey, I finally navigated this thing. Just played around with it. Okay, and that's it. And so those are just the images from that. I'm going to stop this video here and continue in the next.